I was losing the most important man in my life, my father, to cancer. But while I sat by his bedside every night, begging time to slow down, the man who promised to love me forever was sneaking off with my sister. What followed was more than betrayal, it was the unmasking of a family secret, the collapse of my world, and a decision that would leave everyone shattered. If you think betrayal is painful, wait until it comes from blood. Part 1, The Slow Goodbye. Grief comes in stages, they say. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. But no one talks about the version of grief you experience before someone dies, the slow, painful one that chews away at your soul while they're still breathing. That's the grief I lived with every single day for almost a year. My father was everything to me, the rock in our family, the man who never raised his voice, who fixed my bike at midnight when I was 7, who worked 2 jobs just to pay for my college, a man who never missed a birthday or school recital, even when he had nothing left in the tank. When his diagnosis came, it felt like the ground opened up and swallowed our family whole. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. There was no cure, just time, borrowed, precious, cruelly short time. I spent most of my days and nights at the hospital. My fiancé, Ethan, was supportive at first. He made me tea, kissed my forehead, told me to be strong. But as weeks turned to months, and my life became hospital beds, monitors, and fading memories, Ethan began to retreat. "I barely see you anymore," he said one night, as I walked in past midnight. "My dad is dying, Ethan," I said flatly, exhausted. He didn't argue, just turned away, jaw tight. We started drifting, and I blamed myself. I told myself he was lonely, that I was neglecting our relationship. But what was I supposed to do? Pretend like everything was normal while the man who raised me was wasting away? Then came Kayla, my younger sister. Kayla had always been the wild one, beautiful, reckless, and magnetic. She had a talent for making people fall in love with her, then leaving them burned and confused. But she was family, and even when she hurt me in the past, I forgave her, again and again. She started coming around the hospital, at first to see Dad, but slowly, I noticed she spent more time texting in the hallway, laughing with Ethan when I'd leave the room, whispering things that made my stomach knot. I told myself I was being paranoid. But my gut knew, it always knew. One night, I came home after a particularly hard day. Dad had fallen into a delirium, calling out for my late mother, not recognizing me for hours. My heart was raw. All I wanted was Ethan's arms around me, some reminder that life outside that hospital still existed. But the house was quiet. Too quiet. I walked in, dropped my keys on the counter, and something felt off. A woman's perfume lingered, not mine, a faint trace of Kayla's favorite vanilla musk. I moved down the hallway. Our bedroom door was cracked open. What I saw punched the air out of my lungs. Ethan, shirtless, sitting on the edge of the bed, his phone in his hands, and Kayla walking out of the bathroom, wrapped in my towel. She froze when she saw me. So did he. No one said anything. Just the sound of my keys hitting the floor. I don't remember screaming, but my throat was raw for days. I don't remember what I said. Maybe I said nothing. Maybe I just walked away, heart thundering, vision white with rage and betrayal. My fiancé. My sister. While our father was dying. It didn't feel like heartbreak. It felt like a death. The next morning, I didn't go back to the hospital. I couldn't. I sat in my car outside the hospice center, gripping the wheel, knowing that inside, my father, the man who loved us both so purely, had no idea what was happening. That his youngest daughter was betraying his oldest. That the man he gave his blessing to was a liar. I didn't know what to do. But I knew one thing, this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. Of truth, of fury, of everything I'd kept buried rising to the surface. And I was going to make them regret every second of it. Part 2, A Family of Liars. The silence between us could have filled oceans. For 3 days after I walked in on them, I didn't return a single call. Not from Ethan, not from Kayla, not even from the hospice. I couldn't. My mind was split, half of it grieving the inevitable death of my father, and the other half struggling to comprehend the death of the 2 people I thought would never betray me. And then the guilt came. It slithered in at night, whispering, "What if Dad dies while you're frozen in your grief?" So I pulled myself together. I showered. I dressed. I showed up to the hospice like I hadn't watched my whole world disintegrate. Dad was asleep when I got there, his breathing shallow, his hands thinner than ever. He looked like he was already half in another world. My heart shattered all over again. The nurse on duty touched my shoulder gently. "He's been asking for Kayla," she said with a sympathetic smile. Of course he had. He loved her so deeply, so unconditionally. He never saw her recklessness as cruelty, just growing pains, youthful mistakes. She was always figuring it out in his eyes. Even now, as she betrayed me with the man I was supposed to marry, I knew if he knew the truth, he'd still forgive her. But I couldn't. I sat by his bed for hours that day, holding his frail hand, telling him stories I barely managed to string together through the lump in my throat. His eyes fluttered open once, just long enough to whisper, "You're strong, baby girl." No, I wasn't. I was a storm in a skin suit. That night, I returned home only to find Ethan had moved out, half his clothes gone. A note on the counter, "You wouldn't talk to me. I didn't want to make things worse. I'll give you space. I'm sorry." Sorry. Just 5 letters to mop up the blood of my heart. What followed was a week of avoidance. Ethan disappeared into a friend's spare room. Kayla stopped showing up to the hospice. My mother's voice haunted me, "Family is everything. Not when family puts a knife in your back." On the 8th night, I received a text from Kayla. "Can we talk? Please. Not like this. I never meant for it to happen." I ignored it. An hour later, she showed up at the hospice. Dad was asleep. I saw her in the hallway, standing like a ghost, beautiful and broken. But it didn't move me anymore. She tried to hug me. I stepped back. "Don't," I said. "Not here. Not near him." "I messed up," she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "I didn't plan it. It just happened. I was lonely, and he was there, and I was drinking. It was just once." "Don't lie to me," I hissed. "Once doesn't leave towel prints on my bed. Once doesn't walk out of my shower." She opened her mouth, closed it, and then said something I'll never forget. "Maybe you were too busy with Dad to see how unhappy he was. Like that would excuse it. Like grieving my dying father meant I deserved to be cheated on." I saw red. "You are dead to me," I said calmly, too calmly. "I hope when Dad goes, he doesn't find out who you really are." Kayla left sobbing. And I collapsed in the hallway outside Dad's room, shaking from the weight of it all. A nurse offered me a blanket. Another offered me water. I didn't take either. I sat there in that cold chair until dawn. Because going home no longer meant comfort. It meant silence and memories and ghosted promises. The next morning, Dad was worse. He drifted in and out. When I leaned close to whisper "I love you," he smiled faintly and said, "Tell your sister, too." I nodded, but I didn't promise. The day Dad died was quiet. No dramatic gasp, just a slow exhale, like a candle flickering out. I called Kayla. She answered on the 3rd ring. "He's gone," I said. Silence. Then, "I'm sorry." But it was too late for sorry. Too late for everything. Because what they didn't know, what no one knew, was that my father left me a letter. A final gift. One that would blow this story wide open. And when I opened that envelope 2 days later, still numb from the funeral, I understood. The betrayal went even deeper than I thought. Part 3. The letter that changed everything. 3 days after we buried Dad, I found the letter tucked inside his worn brown journal, the one he carried for years, filled with scribbles, hospital notes, and half-written reflections. I hadn't touched it since the funeral. I couldn't, but something pulled me to it that night. A whisper, maybe, a final nudge from beyond. The letter was simple. A white envelope, yellowing around the edges, marked with my name in his unmistakable handwriting. "To my strong girl, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone." I sat on the floor of my childhood bedroom, the house still smelling like lilies and stale grief. My fingers trembled as I opened it. His words hit like a freight train. "My dearest Emma, I've lived with a secret for many years, one that I hoped would never need to come out. But as death gets closer, I can't leave this world without telling you the truth, and trusting you to do what's right with it. Kayla is not just your sister. She is your half-sister. She was born from a mistake, an affair I had early in my marriage with your mother. Your mom forgave me, and we decided to raise Kayla together. You were too little to remember, and we never told you because we didn't want to split the family. But maybe that was wrong. I don't tell you this to hurt you. I tell you this because I suspect Kayla has always sensed the difference, felt it, even if she didn't know why. And I worry that part of her pain, her wildness, came from that truth she never had. I love you both. But you, Emma, you were always the one with my heart. The one who knew how to love deeply and honestly. If she has hurt you, and I fear she has, know this, it's not your fault, and it's not your job to carry her choices. Forgive if you can, walk away if you must, but don't ever let her brokenness break you. With all the love I have left, Dad. I sat there, frozen, the words blurring through my tears. Kayla, my half-sister? The pieces began to shift in my head like jagged glass rearranging into a picture I didn't want to see. It all made sense now. Her resentment, her reckless behavior, the competition I never understood, the way she'd always sought attention and punishment in the same breath. But even knowing all that didn't dull the knife in my chest. She slept with Ethan. She destroyed my engagement, while I was losing the only man who ever truly protected me. And now, she wasn't just my sister. She was the living reminder of my father's greatest mistake. I barely slept that night. I kept replaying the last conversation I had with her. How easily she shifted blame. How quickly she made my grief about her. And now I understood why. She had always felt like an outsider. A shadow in the family she didn't fully belong to. But still, that didn't excuse betrayal. The next morning, I did something reckless. I texted her. We need to talk, but not as sisters, as women. She responded in seconds. Tell me when, I'll be there. We met at a quiet diner on the edge of town. She walked in wearing sunglasses, no makeup, and guilt like perfume. I could smell it on her. I slid the letter across the table. Read it, I said. Her fingers shook as she unfolded it. I watched her face, confusion, disbelief, and then, a strange calm, as if some puzzle inside her finally snapped into place. I always knew, she whispered. I didn't know how, but I always felt it. Like I didn't belong, like you were the real daughter, and I was just a visitor in your world. I said nothing. Is that why you did it? I asked. Is that why you took him from me? She looked up slowly, tears balancing on her lashes. No, I did it because I was broken. Because he made me feel seen, and wanted, and like I wasn't a second choice for once. But that wasn't your fault, or his to give. I leaned forward. You didn't just take a man, Kayla. You took my safe place. You took the one person I leaned on while Dad was dying. I know, she whispered. And you lied while he took his last breaths. She broke then, right there in the diner, sobbing into her hands, drawing stares from nearby tables. But I didn't care. Because I wasn't there for her healing. I was there for mine. I stood up. Goodbye, Kayla. She looked up in panic. Emma. Don't call me that. I snapped. We may share blood, but that's all. I hope you find your peace, but not at the expense of mine. And I walked away. Out of the diner. Out of her orbit. Out of the last shadow of the family I thought I knew. But life wasn't done throwing punches. Because when I got back to my apartment that evening, Ethan was waiting on the steps. And in his hand was a ring box. Part 4. The ring meant nothing. He was sitting on the steps of my apartment like a ghost I hadn't buried properly. The moment I saw him, tousled hair, wrinkled shirt, fingers nervously rolling a small velvet box, I knew this wasn't about love. This was about guilt dressed up as romance. Ethan, I said, voice flat. He's dangling in my hand. Heart pacing in tight circles. I know I don't deserve it, he said quickly. I know I'm the last person you want to see, but I needed 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. 5 minutes. The same amount of time it probably took to ruin everything. I didn't answer. I unlocked the door, walked inside, and left it open behind me. He followed, hesitant, like he didn't belong there anymore. He didn't. The apartment felt different now. Colder, smaller, like it remembered what he'd done. He stood near the coffee table, the one we built together, laughing over mismatched screws and too many wine breaks. He looked at me, eyes glassy. I want to explain. Explain what? I snapped. How you ended up in bed with my sister while my father was dying. Or how you kept lying to my face while telling me you loved me. He flinched. I never stopped loving you, he whispered. I laughed, sharp, bitter. Is that what you told her, too? He pulled out the box, opened it. The same ring, my ring. I was going to propose that night, before you found out. I blinked. So you were screwing my sister and planning to ask me to marry you in the same week? He looked ashamed. It was a mistake. One horrible, drunken mistake. I didn't plan it. It just happened. And the moment it did, I knew I'd ruined everything good in my life. You didn't ruin it, Ethan. You destroyed it. You made a choice. You saw her, my sister, and decided in that moment that my pain didn't matter. He closed the box and set it on the table. I haven't spoken to her since, he said. I couldn't face it. I've been sick over what I did. But losing you, the way I lost you, it made me realize that nothing else mattered. Not guilt, not shame, just you. I stood in silence, heart warring with memory. This was the man who brought me soup when I was sick, who slow danced with me barefoot in the kitchen, the man who held my father's hand when he got too weak to walk. But he was also the man who looked me in the eye while hiding the ugliest betrayal I'd ever known. I don't care what the ring meant, Ethan, I said. It means nothing now, because every time I look at it, I'll see her face. He stepped closer. I'm not asking for forgiveness, just a chance, a real one. Let me prove to you that I'm still the man you believed in. The man I believed in? That man died the night I came home early and heard him whisper I love you into the dark. And it wasn't meant for me. I looked him dead in the eye. You want a second chance? He nodded. Then go find someone who didn't bury her father while discovering her fiancé and sister were lying in her bed. He swallowed hard, silent. You don't love me, Ethan. You love what I gave you, safety, trust, a future. But the moment things got messy, you threw it all away. He stepped back like I'd hit him. The ring box was still on the table. He stared at it, then at me. I'll leave it here, he whispered, in case you change your mind. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I stood like stone as he walked out the door and out of my life. When it shut behind him, I sank to the floor, not because I was sad, but because I finally understood something. Closure isn't always a conversation. Sometimes, it's the silence after someone leaves, and you don't chase them. I left the ring on the table for a week. Watched it every day like a dead thing I was too tired to bury. And then I sold it. Took the money and bought myself something I never thought I'd need. A plane ticket. Out of the city. Away from the ashes. But you can't outrun heartbreak, especially not when the final secret hasn't even surfaced yet. Because 3 weeks later, I got a call from my doctor. And everything I thought I knew shattered again. Part 5, 2 lines and no answers. 3 weeks. It had been 3 weeks since I saw Ethan on my doorstep with a ring he didn't deserve to hold. Since I'd read my father's final confession. Since I'd told Kayla she was dead to me. 3 weeks of silence. And then the phone rang. I was packing. Boxes lined the floor of my apartment like quiet tombstones. Reminders of a life I was ready to leave behind. I planned to move upstate, closer to the mountains. I wanted peace. No more pitying stares from neighbors. No more streets where every corner reminded me of a kiss, a fight, a lie. But when I saw the clinic's number flash across my screen, I froze. I'd gone for a routine checkup a few days earlier. Stress, weight loss, irregular periods. I assumed it was all grief, trauma, heartbreak. Nothing could have prepared me for the nurse's soft voice. Emma, we got your results back. You're about 6 weeks along. I blinked. I'm, what? Pregnant. My knees buckled. I sat on the floor, the box cutter still in my hand. Around me, cardboard towers loomed, but everything blurred. Pregnant. 6 weeks. Which meant, Ethan. A memory stabbed me, our last time together. Before Dad was hospitalized. We'd been clinging to each other like lifelines. Like if we just held on tight enough, the world wouldn't break. And now here I was. alone, heartbroken, and carrying the child of the man who shattered me. "Thank you," I murmured. I don't even remember hanging up. I didn't cry, not at first. I just sat there, palm resting on the barely there curve of my stomach, staring into space. This wasn't the plan. I was supposed to be rebuilding, healing, moving forward. A baby? With Ethan? It felt like a cruel joke from the universe. But beneath the storm in my chest, something stirred. Not peace, not yet, but the faintest whisper of purpose. Like maybe, just maybe, I could still create something good out of everything that had gone wrong. I didn't tell anyone for a week. Not my friends. Not my mom, who had grown distant and silent since Dad died. And certainly not Ethan. But fate doesn't care about timing, or preparation. Because he showed up again, outside the cafe where I worked part-time, a place he should have never known about. "Emma," he said, breathless, "please, I just need 5 minutes." "You already had your 5, I said, brushing past him. "Wait, just listen. I've been in therapy. I'm working on myself. I've cut contact with Kayla completely." "You cut contact with someone you shouldn't have touched in the first place. That doesn't make you a hero." He looked wrecked. "I know. I'm not here to ask for anything. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry, and I always will be." His voice cracked. And I don't know what possessed me, but I looked him dead in the eye and said it. "I'm pregnant." He blinked. "What?" "You heard me." His face turned white. He staggered back like I'd punched him. "Is it yours?" I said coldly. "Congratulations. You're going to be a father." The silence that followed was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "When, how, what do you want me to do?" I shook my head. "Nothing. I didn't tell you because I wanted you involved. I told you because I refused to hide. I refused to let you, or her, taint this child with lies. I want to be there," he whispered. I laughed. "You don't get to want anything." Tears brimmed in his eyes. "Emma, I know I don't deserve a second chance, but maybe I can be a good father. Maybe I can fix something." "You don't fix a shattered soul with shared custody." I left him standing there. He didn't follow. And that night, for the first time since everything unraveled, I allowed myself to cry, really cry. Not for him. Not even for the life I lost. But for the child I was bringing into a world built on ruins. I didn't know what kind of mother I'd be. I didn't know if I'd ever love again. But I knew one thing. This baby would never know the pain of betrayal. Not from me. And that would be the start of our story. But even as I tried to move forward, the past wasn't finished with me yet. Because one final betrayal still waited in the shadows. And this one would change everything. Part 6, The Final Truth. The message came at midnight. A simple text. No name, no explanation. Just 3 words that made my heart freeze. "We need to talk." I stared at my phone, unable to breathe. I knew who it was. It had to be Kayla. My sister. The woman who betrayed me when I was crumbling. The one who shared his bed while my father was dying. The one I thought I'd buried with my trust. But now she wanted to talk? I debated ignoring it, deleting it, pretending she didn't exist. But some wounds demand to be reopened. The next morning, I agreed to meet her in a small cafe downtown, a neutral place, with no memories tied to the past. When I saw her sitting there, pale, anxious, hands twisting a napkin, I realized how fragile she was. "Emma," she said softly, "I'm sorry for everything, for what I did, for breaking you, breaking us." I wanted to scream, to tell her she had no right, but I stayed quiet. "I'm pregnant too," she whispered. The room spun. "Kayla, what are you saying?" She looked me in the eyes. His baby, mine and Ethan's. The betrayal cut deeper than before, twice the pain, twice the humiliation. She continued, tears streaming. "I didn't know, I swear. I didn't know he was with you too. I thought he left you." "Lies," I said, voice cold. She nodded. "I was blinded, but now, I need your help." I wanted to walk away, to never speak to her again. But somewhere beneath the rage, a part of me felt pity. 2 babies, born from the same betrayal, two broken women, fighting for survival. We sat in silence for a long time, two futures tangled in a mess of lies and shattered love. Finally, I said, "This changes nothing. You and Ethan made your choices. I'm making mine." I left the cafe with a heavy heart and a clarity I hadn't felt in months. No matter what happened next, I would protect my child. And myself. Because this was no longer about love. It was about strength. Part 7, Breaking Point. The air in my apartment was thick with silence, the kind that screams louder than any argument. Since meeting Kayla again, everything had shifted, not just the betrayal, but the weight of carrying Ethan's child, the burden of deciding what kind of life I wanted for myself and for this baby. Ethan's calls hadn't stopped, but neither had my resolve. I knew I couldn't keep pretending. So I did what scared me most, I confronted him. We met at a park where we once dreamed about our future, the same spot where I thought our love was unbreakable. But now, all I felt was bitterness. He looked different, worn down by guilt, but still desperate. "Emma," he said, voice trembling, "I want to be part of your life, our child's life, please." I studied him, the man who broke me in two. "Do you deserve that chance?" I asked quietly, "after everything?" He nodded. "I'll prove it." I took a deep breath. "I'm pregnant," I told him, "but I'm not ready to forgive, or forget." His face fell, but he nodded. "I understand. I'll wait, for as long as it takes." I wanted to believe him, wanted to hope that the man I loved was still in there somewhere. But trust isn't rebuilt overnight. That night, alone in my apartment, I felt the first real flutter inside me, a tiny heartbeat, fierce and alive. It gave me something to fight for. Something to protect. And maybe, a reason to heal. Part 8, Choosing Me. The weeks passed in a blur of doctor visits, late-night fears, and stolen moments of hope. Carrying his child was the hardest and the most beautiful thing I'd ever done. Every tiny kick reminded me that life could still grow from pain. Kayla and I never spoke again after that cafe meeting. Sometimes, I wondered if she was as lost as I felt, but I knew I couldn't carry her betrayal too. Ethan tried. He showed up at appointments, sent messages, but I held my walls high. Forgiveness wasn't mine to give, not yet. And then, one rainy afternoon, my phone lit up with a message from my mother. "Your father's will. You need to see this." The lawyer's office smelled sterile and cold, but what I found there would change everything again. My father had left me the house where I grew up, where memories still whispered in every corner. But there was more. A letter. Written in his shaky handwriting, addressed to me. In it, he apologized for not being able to protect me, from Ethan, from Kayla, from the hurt. He told me to be strong, to live, to love myself first. Tears rolled down my cheeks as I clutched that letter like a lifeline. That night, I held my growing belly and whispered, "I will." I didn't know what the future held. But I knew one thing for certain. I was choosing me. No more lies. No more betrayal. Just the fierce love of a mother determined to build something real from the ruins. The pain would always be there, but so would the strength to rise above it. Because sometimes, the darkest storms bring the brightest dawns.